The CPL 2006 Winter Championship Finals from Dallas, Texas are presented by AMD. Own the game. Choose AMD. And by the ATI Radeon X1950 from AMD. Also brought to you by BenQ. Enjoyment matters. Choose BenQ. Pizza Hut, bringing exceptional pizza deals to gamers. Razer, for gamers, by gamers. Coverage brought to you by GotFrag.com, your daily dose of esports.
Hey, welcome to our after CPL Day 1 panel here, and we're with three guys here, and we're going to start on the end there. We've got Mark Cheban, Editor-in-Chief of GotFrag.com, Kim Rom, Head of Communications for us, Steel Series, and then right next to me, Dave Moto from Team 3D, the master of Counter-Strike, and then the other title,
Thank you, Trevor.
God to Walk on Water. So that was all the stuff I had written down.
That was Jesus, sorry. He taught Jesus to walk on water.
Oh, well, he actually taught God, though.
Technically speaking.
Okay, so we're going to get into our first question. We've got
They're related, though.
Here ready to go for this roundtable. The first one is the announcement yesterday by Angel Munoz of Severity. I'm going to start down on the end with Mark because I know he's the most ready of all of us. Coming from the editor-in-chief position, I'm going to throw a question to you. Do you think that this is the right move for the CPL?
Personally, no. I mean, here's the thing. All the games that have been great competitive games are either by pure luck, Counter-Strike, or they're great because of the community that was built up upon them. Like Quake series was built off of people playing Doom, and then Quake 1, Quake 2, Quake 3, and they've had a following for a long time. I just don't know if you can say, okay guys, we're going to make a competitive game, come play it.
Well, I think they tried that in 2005 with the World Tour when they used Painkiller, and I think coming away from that, most people saw that as what it was, which was it was an interesting game to watch, but it had absolutely no following.
So I guess the question for you, Kim, is to balance the two. Is this a sound business decision combined with a smart, decision for the actual organization?
Okay. Let me first say that we haven't actually seen the game yet. But if we look at history, doing Painkiller for 2005 World Tour was not a smart business decision. I think I was online when they announced exactly what game it was. Everybody was waiting for that. You remember the evening, all of you probably. I actually had Painkiller installed off my laptop. I went online. As far as I remember, 16 people in the world were playing Painkiller at the moment they announced it as a World Tour game. And I'm pretty sure that at the end of 2005, 16 people were playing it total and worldwide.
Okay, but there are 16 rich people.
Yeah.
That's true.
I think Vu's laughing his way to the bank.
The other part of this that's been really interesting about Severity is the fact that they're going to do a 1v1 and a 5v5 based game. So I guess the question for you, Dave, is can that be accomplished? Can they make a game that can do both 1v1 and 5v5? And can a gamer be good enough at both of them to win money at both?
I think we've seen it before. I think you've seen with the DM-style games like Quake 3 and Quake 2 that they did succeed in having team-based games as well as individual games. Mind you, it was 4 versus 4 team deathmatch, and it was 1 versus 1 deathmatch. And I mean, if that's the route they're going, then I think it can work. But if you expect to have a game that's played similar to Counter-Strike or played similar to a Call of Duty or any game like that, I don't see how it can transition.
One of the things that I thought was interesting, because we talked to the developers, Kim, is that we saw them say, we want a large community over a profitable one, meaning we don't care so much about having a game that's going to sell. I mean, not necessarily sell, but they don't care about, trying to make money off the advertising or the other aspects. They just want to sell as many copies as they can and have as many people playing as they can. Do you think that's a wise move? Do you think that's a good move for the future? Is that a potentially profitable situation?
To be honest, having heard what I've heard so far about this game, that is probably the most smart decision I've heard so far. Look at everything in this industry. Esport wasn't around, 10 years ago? Look at everything that has sort of blossomed up and bloomed up. Look at GotFrag as an example. You went in there, you didn't make any money for the first few years. You went in there, you created volume, you created traffic, you created an audience, you created a community, and then you capitalized on it. Everything, SteelSeries, my company, same thing. Team 3D, I mean, they were happy playing for mouse pads back in the day. Yeah, I'm sorry, Mo. So you're not big enough to have your own working microphone.
Keep going. No, go ahead.
Yeah,
Sorry.
No, seriously. I think that's a smart decision. That is the way to build things. You, as a proof of painkiller, you cannot force people to play a game that's not fun.
Well, I guess the question, though, I would say in response, and again, I'm just playing devil's advocate here. I'm not necessarily in agreement or disagreement, but if you look at it, they're saying that we can build this game by community support. And I guess first for you, Dave, would you support this kind of a game? And here, we'll share mics here. Would you support
I'd
this?
share more with you than that, Trevor.
Wow. This is getting dirty. But would you help support this game? Would you help test it?
I'd be willing to take a look at it and test it, but I think at the end of the day, if the game doesn't play well, if the game's not fun, it doesn't matter what they do, because no one's going to play a game that's not enjoyable. I think that's the bottom line.
So, Kim, then with that in mind, what do you think? How do you think the community is going to react to this? What are they going to do if the game is popular? If it's not, what do you see CPL reacting to that?
I think we've seen CPL trying to force a game before that wasn't popular. I'm guessing they're probably going to do it again if they're investing in the actual development of the game. But the only way this game is going to fly if it's good. And no one is going to play it if it's not good. No matter how much money they throw at it, yeah, people are going to go in, they're going to go play it, and at the end of the season, they're out again.
Mark, I guess the question then comes down to you. Do you think that the CPL will, if this game isn't good, force it down the throats of the competitive players? Or if it's not, if it is good, I mean, do you think that other events will adopt it because the CPL is the one behind it?
Well, I mean, there's this really like a
No.
3 or 4 part question.
Yeah, well, but go ahead and answer it at your leisure.
If you put a lot of money behind something and you stuck with it and you've been through the development process, you're not just going to give it up. So while they might use it at first, hopefully it develops with the community and the people playing it, and it grows as a game and the community grows with it. But I find it hard to believe that people think that they can make money simply going after solely just a niche market. And it makes sense maybe if it's a paid-for game by somebody, or like a Warsaw that's done by people who just love the game and make it for free. But if you're trying to make any kind of money off of it, you also have to gear it towards the casual players. And if anyone knows anything about the games that have come out, I mean, look at the progression from Call of Duty 1 to Call of Duty 2, from Counter-Strike to Counter-Strike Source, from Day of Defeat to Day of Defeat Source, from Quake 3 to Quake 4's first out-of-the-box play. So I mean, now while it's gotten fixed, I mean, everyone sees the trend that games that are meant to sell aren't maybe necessarily ones that are for the hardcore community. So to me, it doesn't seem like the greatest business sense.
Go ahead, Kim. You can add to that?
Yeah, okay. First of all, yeah, you have a valid point, but I'm actually convinced that the gaming industry is comprised of 99% idiots. No, they always go after like the nifty graphics, trying to do a new engine. That's bullshit. They're not making the product that people want to buy, that people want to play. And the other question was, actually, this could turn out to be a smart business decision. Let's assume that they can make a great game. I'm having doubts about it, but let's say they can make a great game. CPL would be in a position where they actually, literally, controls this game. And that means that CPL can finally move up into a position where they can distance themselves from their competitors. They will own this game. The rest of the world could end up playing a second hand game like Counter-Strike 1.6, and they could own a game that no other tournament in the world would be allowed to do a tournament in.
But that's the thing is Angel has said that he doesn't want to have an EULA on this game, meaning any LAN center, any event can hold it, and they don't have to talk to Angel, they don't have to talk to the game developers. That won't exist in this game. So it'll be free for everyone to use. And if that's the case, do you think that's going to help grow the sport there, Dave? I mean, if anybody in a LAN center can play it and not have to worry about paying Valve or whoever else to set it up, what do you think?
No, I definitely agree. I think that's one thing that can hurt game developers and hurt the community as a whole. I mean, if you always have to check in with someone else to find is it okay if I do this, it's going to make you less willing to want to use it. And just touching on something Mark had said about like how the communities grow, I think what we've seen is like the Quake 3s, the Quake 2s evolving into Quake 4 and having a game that out of the box is just I think what most people would say is not very good, and how there hasn't been much of a following with Counter-Strike Source in the community. It just seems like Kim said, they're going after the wrong things, and they're losing touch with what makes the game great, the classic gameplay, and a lot of the fun things that are why people play the games.
But do you think they can capture that again, though, in this game? Do you think with the players' help they can do that?
I think it's definitely anything is possible. It's just a matter of having the right focus on what's important, and lots of shiny stuff and realistic stuff here and there isn't always the most fun thing.
I guess I'll give Kim and Mark any chances to reply, and then we'll go on to the next topic. So go ahead, Kim. Go ahead. Anything else you want to add to that?
No, I think you're right. I remember back in the day I used to play MMORPG with this guy who was a lead developer on Rainbow Six. And he was really interested in my Counter-Strike background. So, yeah, well, I've been playing Counter-Strike since 2000. I go to these tournaments, we win money. It's like, well, why do you play that game? It's shit. Like, no. That's actually a good game. Come out with a Rainbow Six where I can do the stuff I can do that. Skill-based. So, yeah, anything's possible if they understand what a good esports game is.
And Mark, anything last comments there on that topic?
And you have to have a community behind a competitive game. The game could be the greatest game in the world, maybe like a game like Return of Castle Wolfenstein, which is a phenomenal game, but had no community. So you can have a great game and have no community, and you can have a poor game and no community, and it's still, it's not going to be a good esports game. You have to have a good game and a good community behind it.
So I think the consensus here is that we're going to be in a situation where in the mid-2008, when this game does get released, we're going to see, have they listened to the community and have they pulled it off? Okay, so the next topic here, again, we're going to have 4 of them, so they're 1 down, 3 to go. The CS tournament so far, we're going to go over, I guess, who you guys think are your favorites, who do you guys think are your surprises? Let's start with you, Dave. I can't count 3D, I'm sorry, but beyond Team 3D, who do you like in this tournament and who do you not like in this tournament? Maybe a little overrated.
Looking into this tournament, I'd say there's a lot of competition, and I can't really take a look at any one team and say they're my favorites, because you have your teams like NIP and MYM and Fnatic, and I mean you can never count them out, and they're always going to come and play a quality level of Counter-Strike. But I think it's kind of foolish to kind of take a look so far down the line, because I think as we've seen with Counter-Strike, you really never know what you're going to have at the end of the tournament. You always have your dark horses. You always have your teams that really come out of nowhere and surprise the tournament. As far as teams, I think that could shake something up. I mean, you take a look at these teams like Zex and Pandemic, where most people would just count them out, but it's obvious that they can compete with these, top-tier teams, as people want to call them, and that makes for some interesting Counter-Strike.
And Kim, do you have a favorite, or, I mean, again, let's lay off the teams that are sponsored by SteelSeries here, but again, any of the teams you like, any teams you maybe say, I don't know if they're going to do as well as people think they're going to do?
As a major sponsor in esports, I probably shouldn't answer that question. Let me rephrase the question and tell the audience something I would like to tell them. Now, okay, I have 2 things to remark on the tournament so far. One, for the first time I can't remember ever seeing this before, we actually had a female team, a pure female team, participating in a male tournament.
That is
a landmark event for female gaming. I've bashed female gaming for the last 6 years. I think it's a joke. Finally we're seeing something good.
Let me just say real quick so people understand. We're talking about the SK ladies team that played here, and they did go out 0-3, but you're thinking that the actual fact that they showed up and played is an impressive
They're finally
thing.
Playing males. They're no longer sort of playing their own little tournaments, playing against teams their own level. Because, okay, let's face it, today proved it. There is a kind of difference in skill level between male teams and female teams. But they are finally getting there. They're ready to take up the challenge and fight for it. I have a lot of respect for that.
That's an interesting perspective.
The second perspective is that the world record in the most winnings for a year is held by SK Gaming in 2003. You remember back in the day when the old school team just dominated everything. Yeah. If Complexity wins this tournament, they will be the new record holders.
That's an impressive stat. I knew that they were high up there. I didn't know that SK was as high as well, though. So
if they win this tournament, they're going to have the new world record for the most winnings in a year. So, sorry, Dave. I'm kind of rooting because I would like to see that record broken.
That's an interesting stat. So we'll be watching to see if Complexity is able to pull that off. Mark, you're up on bat now. Team that you think maybe a little overrated and a team that you think has a shot at winning this thing?
Well, first off, Dimitri from Virtus Pro, or formerly Virtus Pro.
He's terrible.
From what I've heard. From what I heard, but he's not here and he's not on Virtus anymore, so I'm gonna have to lay off of him. And I'm not gonna say anything bad about JMC because the last time I did that, I got in a little trouble. So basically, like Kim said, Complexity had a rough WSVG finals, and I'd really like to see those guys do well. I'd like to see Inari, Hooray, Wings, Serious Gaming. I think they got a couple other names, I don't know, but whatever they call themselves this week, I want to see those guys do well. And, you know, and really with this format, I don't think there's any teams that are just going to bomb because, you know, you have this group play format, so, you know, you're playing enough matches where it's not really a fluke loss. You have to screw up pretty bad to get kicked out, so.
Okay, so great job. A little bit of predictions from everybody there. Personally, I don't really have a team yet that I want to root for.
Come on.
I think that I like the idea of Complexity beating that record. I'm one of those SK. I think they use the money system to their advantage to get there. But I do like the NIP guys. I think they have an opportunity to come back from WSVG and play well at this event. And I do like the way Pentagram played earlier. We watched them play Mug and Mouse, and they were absolutely on fire. So I think those two teams are really looking like they could do very well. Yeah, go ahead, Mark.
I got one last thing for my man in the corner, Mark Dolvin. Just want to let him know that if Pandemic does this, I'm buying you a beer.
Yes, Pandemic is definitely one of those teams that we've been talking a lot about and we've been hearing a lot about from Dolvin. Okay, let's move to the rule changes. Me and Dave here had a nice conversation at the last CPL about rule changes, and that got out on the internet, and everybody seemed to talk about it. So we're going to revisit that. Dave, they did. They listened to us. They listened to you.
Hooray!
Oh, my gosh. So what do you think of the new rules, and what do you think of the whole situation, and what do you think of the tournament's potential for more honest results now?
I'm really happy. I am ecstatic.
I can tell.
You know, this smile is genuine. But I looked at the way they set up this tournament, and I wasn't completely happy with it. You know what? I don't like double group play. I think they would have been better served to do either a less number of groups, say going 6 teams to a group, where you play 5 games, skipping the second group play and getting straight into the single and best of 3. I just think double group play is just unnecessary. I think what group play does well is it weeds out the teams that have no business going on. And then you get to the best of 3 single elim, and then that's where you advance yourself as a team. I just see it as a position where you're playing way too many CS matches. I thought about it. I mean, if you make it to the finals, you've played something like a potential almost 15 maps. That is ridiculous. And
you're going to know who the best team is at the end of those 15.
You know what you will, but you would at the end of a single group play and then best of 3 single elimination. But you know what? I'm happy they're finally at least making progress in the right direction.
And Kim, I know that you're an old school European guy who they seem to have used groups for a long time there. ES World Cup has been using groups for as long as I can remember. CPL Europe's used groups forever. Do you think that this is the right move, and do you think that this is the best course for the CPL? That's 2 separate questions too.
Okay, as the Kim Rom the person, sorry, but I'm kind of sad to see this thing. I really loved going to Dallas. I loved the whole double elimination thing. Like, Yeah, okay, you probably have some unfair results from time to time, but it was like boxing. It was a man's tournament. Come on, ESWC and all that. Yeah, okay, it's sort of a girls' tournament. This was a man's tournament, and if you could withstand the pressure, you perhaps got a bit lucky with the seating and so on. You made the right move. I know we have someone here in the studio, like Dave, Team 3D, who have some pretty unlucky CPLs, but if you won, you were good.
Understatement of the century.
And the second thing, in CPL Europe, we actually did something else. We had group play, and then we had double elimination.
It's true. Yes.
And coming into upper bracket finals and the lower bracket finals and the consolidation finals, that was fucking interesting CS. That was interesting matches.
That's definitely true. I guess I'm going to pass to Mark now. You've heard it, the man's tournament of double elimination and the true format of groups and then single elimination. Where do you stand on this whole issue?
I'm a fan of how the CPL Europe used to do things. Group play to weed out the teams that have no business here, like, coming here for the fun, the LAN party, hanging out with their friends, that kind of stuff. And that's all fair and games. So you got to have the people to fill out the bracket. But CPL has always been double elimination, and I have no problem with people changing things up, but, like, you're never going to get the adrenaline GX in Team 9 bombing, losing to some terrible team and then going all the way through the lower bracket, beating everybody along the way, like, in overtime. I mean, you're never going to have that again. And that added kind of like this whole, like, okay, are they going to keep making it on? And made the matches so much more intense. Now it's like, okay, so 3D lost the first map again. They can still win the next two. So it's not like, it just doesn't have the same amount of suspense.
If we want suspense, let's just go single elimination throughout the whole thing and let 3D get knocked out in the second round by a good team.
Or we could just flip a coin.
That we could do that as well.
I think I can respect what people are saying about double elimination, but we're not competing in something here that isn't flawless. The problem is Counter-Strike is, I hate to use the word, it's a random game. Something, you know what, I did, but you know what, I'm sorry, it's the truth. And the problem is when you have people who work as hard as they do to be successful in a game like this, you can't have double elimination as a format. It's just unfair to the people who really commit themselves and they put the time in. If this was a game like football or any other sport where for the most part, most of the things were under the control of, the players, and you obviously have your things that can go wrong, but imagine being in a match where you have everything on the line, where if one little thing goes wrong, for instance, we were playing Complexity in June at the WSVG Kentucky, where Volcano got stuck on the rock and CT spawned on Nuke and couldn't move, and we subsequently lost that round. Like, would that have been fair to us if we lost the tournament? You have to take some of the, again, using your most favorite word, randomness out of it to make it fair and really see who's the best. Yes, you're not going to have the intensity of the lower bracket because you have the people on the verge of going home, but then again, at the same time, you're like Trevor said, you're going to know who the best is.
I guess the only argument I would make against that is that one of the greatest events that we have in the U.S., and again, this is obviously debatable, but one of the best sporting events that we have in the U.S. is March Madness. And it's single elimination, do or die all the way through. And so I wonder if, for the future of the sport, some sort of compromise to that level could ever be achieved.
Until you can make Counter-Strike a flawless game like basketball where no midget with space boots is going to jump through the rim and smack the ball out, then you know what? Then we'll talk about single elim.
There's one reason why Counter-Strike can never be single elimination. It's not one map. It's not one court.
Yeah.
It's what, 6 maps now? It changes from event to event, but I think it's 6 or 7 maps now. And you have an offensive side and a defensive side. And how do you figure out who's going to start? Some team somehow is always going to have an advantage. That's why it can never be single elim.
I guess let's finish up with Mark here, and then we'll move on to the next topic. Any last comments there, Mark?
No, I agree with Kim and with Dave that, I don't think there is a perfect format. It's just, for me, it was a shame to see the CPL kind of just totally
becoming a girls' tournament.
Becoming girls or caving into pressure from influential people in the community. So, you know,
You seem to have a girls' a mentality over there, Kim.
Whoa.
Girls'
I'm
tournaments-
European.
Yeah, no argument.
I'm not touching that.
Oh,
I'm
we got our comments in the back, the crowd laughing at that one. Okay, so
the studio audience.
yeah, the studio
that.
audience
That's not
going
a
at
laugh
that
track.
one. Okay, so moving on to the last topic here. Again, next year CPL, we're in CPL. They're going to Quake 3. Quake 4's out there. It's made a lot of changes. CS is out there. What do you think of the decision to do Quake 3? Let's attack this from two different angles. First, let's attack this Quake 3 over Quake 4, and then we'll talk about other games that maybe should have been considered, and then we'll kind of work our way from there. So, Dave, first off, Quake 3 over Quake 4. What's your thoughts?
As far as the game goes, Quake 3 is a way better game than Quake 4. I mean, I've been following 1v1 DM games for a very long time. I've played Quake 3, I've played Quake 4, and Quake 3 just seems like such a better game. I mean, not to say Quake 4 is a bad game, but Quake 3, I think it was the right move. I think this is a growing trend in. I mean, while, you know, in the past CPL has done some questionable things, like you've said, like by using Painkiller, I think it was something that, you know what, it was, hey, I think it was them taking a look at the available games and saying, like, you know what, I think Quake 3 would be a better choice. And I can look back, and some of the most exciting and most entertaining matches I've ever watched have been from Quake 3. And I'm happy to see it.
And Kim, what are your thoughts? Again, I know, moving a little more on that, is Quake 4 not ready, or is Quake 4 simply not good enough?
To be honest, I don't see Quake 4 as good enough, and I have to agree with you. I think Quake 3 was probably the best one-on-one game ever made, and today it still is. And the engine was perfect, the feel of the game was perfect, the timings, the spawns, everything. It was, the weapons, the balance.
Perfect enough for single limb?
Yeah. Yeah.
Go ahead. Keep going.
Seriously, that was a game that was perfect for single elimination. You had no advantages. Everyone was equal. It was like boxing. You go in the round, you knock the other guy out. If you're really good, he comes out with a minus score. Yeah.
I could disagree with that because, you know, because everything, you know what, everything in that game, the OSP-based spawns, you did have an advantage. If you spawned on one map, say on ZTN, you spawn next to the lightning gun, you pick up the lightning gun, you pick up the mega, you already have an advantage that your opponent didn't have.
That's a map problem. That's a map problem, not a game problem.
That's the way the game is designed, with where you can randomly spawn. It's a coin flip, and until you have both people start right at the same spot and they battle it out with chain guns from the start, then you know what?
And again, that's a map problem. They have to design the map probably.
You're gonna have to choose to disagree there, Mark. Quake 3, Quake 4. Let's go to a little bit deeper again. How does this affect the community? I know you're pretty hot on this topic. It split the community. In that opinion, in that straight, and just looking at that, do you think that's this is a bad decision by the CPL?
Well, I think the bad decision was ditching Quake 3 in the first place, and like
I think you just got a lot of ESR fans.
Well, I mean, let's be honest. I mean, I'm not, you know, let's be honest here though. You have Fatality, you're winning these tournaments. You have 0-4, you have CZM, you have all these great Quake players. I mean, you have Zamus, you have Prozac, you have all these guys with great talent coming to the U.S. to play in CPLs. Get great matches. I mean, Frag 4 was the last like Quake tournament, and they played TDM. I mean, TDM is like one of the most entertaining forms of Quake that I can watch. I mean, it's like hockey. People are just going at it. People are, you know, bodies are flying. It's great. So, you know, I just think it was a gut reaction saying, oh, Counter-Strike's got all these people in the BYOC. Let's make it an official game and drop Quake 3, when clearly the communities are large enough where you can have both, as we've seen here. Now, granted, it's grown, but, you know, at the same time, I still think you could have the two side by side. The second part of that question is necessarily not that, you know, picking one or the other is bad. It's just look at WSVG has Fatality, who's how many CPL championships has he won? He's playing Quake 4, and I think that does damage to the sport as a whole. It does damage to both WSVG and it does damage to the CPL. I mean,
so you're implying the fact that Fatality isn't at this event hurts both?
No, I'm not implying that. I'm just saying that, you know, when stars get built in a game, and then they're forced to pick between 2 different games, and they've invested all this time into one of them. You know, is that fair to the community? Is that fair to the people playing the game? I don't know. I don't think it is. So, you know, it has nothing to do with the qualities of the game of one or the other, or qualities of an organization. I just think it's a shame.
I got a little bit different question here for you than Kim off of this. He brought up the idea that CPL went away from Quake 3 because of a knee-jerk reaction for CS, but I would propose that maybe it wasn't that. Maybe it was ID software and maybe the impact of the actual developers. How big of an impact have the developers had on tournament-based and what games are played at our tournaments?
To be honest, from where I'm sitting at the table and sort of looking at all this, I think the tournaments have more impact on these kinds of things than developers themselves has. Let's take a look at it. I heard rumors about CPL sort of getting unclear with ID software back in the day. So, okay, they dropped Quake 3. I absolutely cannot say if this is the truth or if something else transpired I don't know about. That's a story I heard. Rumors. In 2004, everyone was sort of getting ready to switch to CS Source. No one was really happy about it, but people were starting to accept that, okay, we're going to be switching to Source. And then CPL announces an event at the exact same time as ESWC. ESWC quickly announces that they're going to stick to Counter-Strike 1.6. CPL was going for a Source, ended up doing a 1.6 tournament as well to attract more teams, and the scene was divided. I think the tournament side has more impact. We're seeing it again now. Some tournaments are going to do Quake 4, some tournaments are now going to do Quake 3.
So
the tournaments are dividing.
So you think it's overblown, this idea of the actual developers having an impact upon what games are played?
Absolutely.
Dave,
Absolutely.
I know you wanted to say something back about this whole thing. What is your feeling on both the developers and impacts on the game, but also on the division of the Quake scene? Do you have any responses to those?
The only thing I can say is the player who's been dominating Quake 4 the last year, Toxic, is not here. He's nowhere to be seen. And I remember asking him in New York, I'm like, hey, are you coming to Dallas? And he's like, no. He's like, I haven't been practicing Quake 3, and I'm not going without practice, which is very reasonable. But it's just like, you know, how can we look at this tournament and have anyone win it and think, like, that guy's number one? Because the guy who's obviously been dominating all these other Quake tournaments isn't here. I mean, like, what good does this do us as a community, esports as a whole?
And I guess the other question then, what about the developers' impact upon the games? I mean, you, in your position with Source and 1.6 sitting here, and there's a lot of talk about the DirecTV situation and what they may go with. They had a CGI event recently. It was Source. How do you feel about all that, and how do you feel about what Kim said?
I think that when a company wants, if they want to use Source as DirecTV, I mean, it would seem to me like that would be the wiser thing to do, because it's obviously prettier on the eyes than 1.6. And I mean, I will always, and to this day, I will say that I think Source is an awful game. I think it plays terribly. I think it looks fantastic, but it drives like crap. Yeah. And I mean, you know what? That's what it is. And all the players will transition, and all the best players in 1.6 will be the best players in Source, but they'll be riding around in a junker.
All right, I think that kind of wraps it up. And we're going to go through one last comments from all of you guys. Any last parting shots you guys want to make? Any shout-outs you guys want to make? I know a few of these guys in the middle would love to say some things to the audience. Mark, let's start with you down in the end. Anything you want to say that you've been itching to get out from this event?
I just want to say that Jason Lodeholt needs to do some work. But side note, I'm really happy that GotFragTV got off to the start that it did, and that we're showing people how this should be really done. And I'm excited to finally be here doing this the way it should be done. As a spectator, I've witnessed people not do it right, and I'm glad that we're at least a lot further along the road than they are.
Well said. Kim, go ahead.
I would like to say that Jax from JMC has put on a lot of weight, and it really doesn't suit him. I'm just saying. What? I'm telling the truth here.
I think he needs to get a new suit too. The same one he wears.
Yeah,
all the time.
it's the same. Yeah, the same suit, and it's kind of bulging now. I don't know why. Oh.
George Zimmer can hook him up. Just call him up.
Okay, so Dave, any last shout-outs, any last comments?
You know, even though I am here on GotFragTV, I actually will say that it looks good. I mean, I'll give you guys that much. If it was bad, I was gonna have to laugh at Sir Scoots, but it looks good, and I'm impressed. I'll say that much. It looks like an actual sporting event that I would watch on TV.
And you know what, Dave? I can't let you get away without at least telling us what's 3D going to do at this event. How are they going to place?
Preferably not something blank through blank. I'd like a low number, preferably 1. That would be nice.
Yeah, I have one last thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
Lee actually asked me to say this.
Yeah.
How come you're always wearing the same shirt for all these events?
Oh, I knew that was coming up. I knew that was coming. I knew that was coming. I blame our fashion coordinator back there, Jason Baker. He has great fashion sense, and if you're looking for the next suit piece, go talk to him. Okay, so we're going to wrap it up for today. Great debate, guys. I appreciate you guys coming on. We'll be doing this more. Hopefully we'll get one done for tomorrow. And again, so you've been checking us out, GotFragTV, first day coverage. Tomorrow we're going to get started bright and early. We've got 3D playing. They're going to be against Turmoil in a top match in that group. We've also got Pandemic and U5. Those will be taking place before 1:30. Check back on GotFrag.com. We'll have all the information on that. We also have the second round of group play tomorrow, too, so there's going to be a lot of great matches. We encourage you to stay. We're going to be doing coverage throughout the week, all the way up till Wednesday's final. And you know what? I think 3D hopes they're in that, right? Right?
I'd really hope so.
All right. So thanks, guys. Thanks for joining us. And we're going to take it away. Thank you, guys. And have a good night.
The CPL 2006 Winter Championship Finals from Dallas, Texas are presented by AMD. Own the game. Choose AMD. And by the ATI Radeon X1950 from AMD. Also brought to you by BenQ. Enjoyment matters. Choose BenQ. Pizza Hut, bringing exceptional pizza deals to gamers. Razer, for gamers, by gamers. Coverage brought to you by GotFrag.com, your daily dose of esports.